The nominees for Best Motion Picture are
Kent, a naive young man convicted of manslaughter, begins his 10-year prison term being roomed with the unofficial leaders of the inmates. Morgan, a robber and counterfeiter, played by Chester Morris, and Butch, a violent and gruff murderer, played by Wallace Beery.
What's wrong in here?
He took my cigarette.
Did he, Morgan?
I don't know, sir. I was asleep.
Did you take the kid's cigarette?
No, sir, so
They're
help
both
me.
lying.
Less noise or you'll spend your first night in a dungeon.
Ah, don't put the kid in the cooler. He's green. He just went off his nut. He won't do it again.
Well, you watch your step. Understand?
Well, Mr. Yellowbelly, you're going to get your first lesson right now. You can't squeal in, sir.
Morgan, a criminal with morals and the itch to go straight, tries to help the new prisoner without much success.
I'll give you some good advice, Kent. Now, you're in a tough spot. But you've got to learn that whining and double-crossing isn't going to get you anywhere.
I'm not whining, and I won't stand for your ribbing. What right have they got to poke me in a cell with Butch and you, a robber, bragging about it?
Oh, I see. Too good for the rest of us, huh? Well, if you're wise, you'll stand up and take your jolt like a regular guy.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Kent, played by Robert Montgomery, says the car incident that led to someone's death was just an accident, but his innocent facade is thin, and he lies and frames his fellow prisoners if it benefits him. He even plants Butch's knife on Morgan and cheats the well-behaved Morgan out of his parole. Morgan swears vengeance and is thrown into solitary. But Morgan soon breaks out of the prison and runs into Kent's sister, played by Leela Himes, and I do apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, the two falling in love. But Morgan hasn't seen the last of Butch and Kent, and things are destined to get violent in the overcrowded prison. For 1930's The Big House, director George Hill and his then-wife, prolific screenwriter Frances Marion, traveled to San Quentin State Prison in California to get an idea of prison life. This was worthwhile, as it allowed Marion to develop a level of accuracy in depicting true prison conditions, even if it may sanctify the warden and some of the guards. While it feels somewhat like the stuff in the movies, there's a hopefulness to the picture that I admired. The warden, played by Lewis Stone, believes these men, in certain cases anyway, can reform and has some faith in Ken and Morgan. It was rather refreshing to see an authority figure believe in the rehabilitation of inmates. I also admired the film being unafraid to criticize aspects of the prison system.
Yes, I warned them at the last governor's council. We have 3,000 here and cell accommodation for 1,800. They all want to throw people into prison, but they don't want to provide for them after they are in. And you mark my word, Pop. Someday we're going to pay for their short-sightedness.
Sure, the whole prison system is cockeyed.
I wish The Big House featured more of this. Morris, Beery, and Montgomery all serve their parts well, but Beery, who was nominated for Best Actor, is underutilized. He's entertaining to be sure.
I can't eat that stuff. Who did that? Me! What do you think of that? I want some food. I don't want any more of this, Will. You give me some food to eat. I'm not going to eat that junk. Get up! Come on, give me some food. I ain't afraid of your guns. I ain't afraid of nobody. Come on, you yellow fellas. Let's show 'em.
That volley went against the wall. The next time, shoot to kill. Butch, sit down.
Yellow belly.
Sit down, Butch. It's your last chance.
But I was left feeling like some of Butch's key scenes were missing. I also wish there were more scenes dedicated to our romance. Our romantic leads share two scenes together, one where they meet, and one after they've known each other for a while and have fallen in love. No scenes, however, are spent showing their romance build, so I didn't care about it. But the cast and the comments on the prison system should make a solid film. But in Hill and Marion's attempts to make an accurate prison picture, they seem to have forgotten to give the film sufficient tension to sustain itself. While the story ratchets up satisfactorily for the climax, it spends too much time casually and mundanely relating events to the point that it felt meandering, even if all the plot points were relevant. The Big House is a perfectly serviceable prison movie, but I can't say it's much more than that. Disraeli began its life as a 1911 play by Lewis N. Parker. It made a stage star out of George Arliss, who played the title role. While Arliss was still performing the play on Broadway, he was angered to find out he wasn't cast in a 1916 film starring British stage actor Dennis Eady. Arliss wanted to make his own film version in America, so he and his film company bought up the movie rights and made a second silent version in 1921. Not stopping there, Arliss also had all the copies of the 1916 film destroyed, but his 1921 film was later lost, so maybe that's karma for you. Today we're focusing on the first sound adaptation. The 1929 version of Disraeli takes place in 1874 as the then newly appointed British Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli, who was based on a real person, here played by George Arliss. Disraeli isn't popular with his contemporaries, who are prejudiced against him for being Jewish and who scoff at his radical ideas. His newest one is purchasing the strategic Suez Canal before the Russians and securing control of India. The head of the Bank of England is against everything that Disraeli fights for and refuses to loan the Prime Minister the money.
I'll not allow the bank to play ducks and drakes with its money on an Egyptian ditch. In short, I disapprove of your imperialistic ideas, Mr. Disraeli, and the bank will not stir a finger to further them.
Disraeli turns to a leading Jewish banker to finance the purchase.
Ismail Pasha, the king of Egypt, is under the impression that he's Ramesses the Great. But the only pyramid he has raised is the pyramid of death. Egypt is a dry bone, out of which he has sucked the last ounce of marrow. The last assets he has are the controlling shares in the Suez Canal. These he is dying to sell to the highest bidder. France built the canal, but she's too poor to buy it. Russia covets it as a means of snatching India. England as a means of defending it. Both pretend the purchase is the last thing in the world they are thinking of. Both are watching each other like cats. And Ishmael sits and waits for the cat to jump.
Disraeli also enlists the help of the young Lord Charles Deford, played by Anthony Bushell, fails in his proposal to Lady Clarissa, played by Joan Bennett. Disraeli, who has almost a father-daughter relationship with Clarissa, thinks Charles would be a good husband for her and he plays matchmaker. Meanwhile, a Russian spy, played by Doris Lloyd, is out to thwart Disraeli's plans. Disraeli has possibly the weirdest energy of any film I've ever seen. It needs to make the transition from stage to screen, and it almost gets there, but it fails more often than not. Some of the actors seem oddly detached from their performances, just reciting lines but not putting anything into them.
I have spoken to your mother, and she has given me her gracious permission to address you.
Was her permission needed?
Well, I'm rather a stickler for form, you know.
I know.
And then we have George Arliss, who gives the most memorable performance. He better, given that he won Best Actor that year.
Mr. Disraeli.
Huh? I know that tone of voice so well.
What do you mean, sir?
It's the tone of an angry man. Now, what can have put you out? No, don't speak. Interruptions are annoying. If they hadn't interrupted me the first time I addressed the House of Commons, I might have become a vestryman and respectable.
Really, Mr. Disraeli, you make it difficult to talk to you seriously.
I never talk seriously. Keep your grave face for your jokes.
I never make jokes.
A man who never makes jokes is a standing joke to the world.
Humor is of several kinds. We Oxford men have a humor of our own.
I know. An unconscious humor.
But also delivers theatrical overacting at times.
What will happen to me? Disgrace. Utter and irretrievable. The kind of disgrace no man can bear. No man can live through.
Dizzy!
Yes, by heaven I will bear it. I'll face the nation. I'll bear it alone.
Not alone, dear.
Thank God for you, man. Thank God for you.
1929 was a bad year for this to come out. My idea of how a political film like this should work is to have a constantly moving tempo with non-stop urgency. It's hard to do that in the static, stilted year that was 1929. Disraeli pretends to have urgency, but so casually and almost mundanely walks through its story that you'd think this was about something as unimportant as Disraeli establishing new army uniforms. While the movie tries to explain at least twice why it's imperative for England to purchase the Suez Canal before Russia, there's not enough weight put on that point, and there's no personal human reason for me to care. I prefer to think about it like this. Imagine you have a Castle Under Siege movie. For it to have proper stakes, you need to see the innocent civilians whose lives will be lost if the castle is overtaken. In other words, it's not about keeping your big important castle, it's about protecting lives. Disraeli the movie is about England expanding its empire. There's no real identifiable human reason for me to care about this deal. It doesn't help that the modern world view on England ruling India is not good, and I really can't support or get behind Disraeli's purchase, which led to the British taking hold of India and horribly mismanaging it and seeing millions of Indians die unnecessarily. Arliss's performance is really the only reason to check this out, and even then, that isn't amazing. The Divorcee is a 1930 film based on the 1929 novel The Ex-Wife. It stars Norma Shear as Jerry, whose 3-year marriage to Ted, played by Chester Morris, begins to crumble after she discovers he's had an affair. In emotional despair, Jerry spontaneously sleeps with Ted's best friend Don, played by Robert Montgomery. Ted learns of this and the two decide to get a divorce. Ted becomes an alcoholic, and Jerry starts living a life of parties and fun, going out and sleeping with whichever man she chooses. Which might end up being Paul, an old friend played by Conrad Nagel, who held and still holds romantic feelings for Jerry. The Divorcee tackles the common topic of divorce and, more subtly, the stigma placed on women who go through it. What I appreciate about this film in particular is its frankness and forward-thinking approach. It doesn't take the man's side. It actually points out the hypocrisy of affairs when it comes to men and women. Namely that it's not as bad if men have them, but if women do, well, oh no, that's awful, and you, a woman, should feel awful for hurting me, a man, like that. Thankfully, Jerry doesn't accept this kind of bullcrap from Ted.
Someplace among the people we know, there's a man. Maybe men, I don't know. But from now on, I'll wonder which one. And how many of them are laughing at me.
Well, couldn't I have said that the day you asked me to marry you? Supposing I had said, no, Ted, I'm afraid I may meet the women that you've known. And why not? I waited for you. You were my first love.
But this is entirely different.
All right, then. But tonight I come back here, ready to humiliate myself, beg for your forgiveness, ready to forgive you anything because I love you. And you say that's different? You tell me your vanity is hurt?
Or call it anything you like.
Vanity. I'll never forget that.
Let's not talk any more about it.
And I thought your heart was breaking like mine. But instead you tell me your man's pride can't stand the gas.
Jerry's new lifestyle was a radical idea to show on film at the time, but a welcome one. Norma Shear is known as a star who helped dispel the idea that women had to be virginal innocents in order to be respectable. And The Divorcee shows how she was able to do so with class, pathos, complexity, and maturity. Because Jerry's new post-divorce lifestyle is born out of the pain she's experiencing from the breakup. She's lashing out and trying to find a new start, but isn't finding a healthy way to do it, instead escaping without actually healing. And please don't think I'm saying women or men can't have a lot of sex partners after a divorce. They can, but in this case, it's not entirely right for Jerry. She less wants to sleep with whoever she desires, and more wants to fill the emotional void left by her marriage.
Oh, I made such a mess of it, Paul. I'm so tired.
Forgive me, Jerry. I didn't mean to upset you.
I'm so tired. You brought back so much. Oh, I'm so fed up. I've made such a wreck of things. Such a good-for-nothing mess.
Ted isn't coping well with the loss of the marriage either, but in his case, he's turned to drink and pure sadness, desperate to forget Jerry.
Oh, you leaving town? Yes, New York's bad medicine. A lot of things I want to forget. I can't seem to do it very well around here.
I know exactly how you feel.
You see, I keep thinking what a sad little fellow I am. And brooding over the man that ruined my life.
What would you do if you found him?
Kill him, I suppose. Funny, isn't it? How one girl can be bigger than all the tall buildings.
Well, I'll look you up. When you get settled, let me know.
I may start and never stop.
Surprise, surprise, the film does have a happy ending, but it didn't backpedal away from the strong feminist views it began with. Jerry doesn't go groveling to Ted or proclaim that it's wrong for women to sleep with multiple men, or for women to be independent, or any of that. Jerry's character remained true, and the plot wrapped up in a traditional feel-good Hollywood manner without feeling any less accurate to life or people. The Love Parade, based on a 1919 play called The Prince Consort, begins with Count Alfred, played by Maurice Chevalier, the military attaché to the Sylvanian embassy in Paris, being reassigned after too many scandals, including sleeping with an ambassador's wife. He's sent to the Sylvanian queen, Louise, played by Jeanette MacDonald in her film debut, for punishment. Louise is unmarried and tired of the entire kingdom wondering when and to whom she'll be married.
Marriage. In all my country, nothing else is ever spoken of. What do the children learn at school? The Queen is unmarried still. What do the papers write about? Is the Queen to marry? What does my Parliament debate? When shall the Queen marry? And from my ministers, whom shall the Queen marry? Marriage, marriage. That's all I hear morning or night.
She does fall in love with Alfred and they get married. But Alfred, who isn't keen and holds no real power, quickly grows tired of being submissive to the Queen's wishes and the marriage starts to crack. Released in 1929, The Love Parade marked director Ernest Lubitsch's first foray into talking pictures. Despite his inexperience with talkies, Lubitsch already displayed great technical skill. Through editing, clever set design, and a masterful handling of sound, Lubitsch was able to cross-cut between two actors seen simultaneously, an intricate setup not seen in 1929. I think this was supposed to be the climactic song between Chevalier and MacDonald and actors Lupino Lane and Lillian Roth due to a picture I found, but the latter couple seem to have had their half cut out of the film because I can't find it in the finished product. Just a moment between the two before the song starts. Lubitsch's innovations and pushing of on-hand technology makes The Love Parade far less awkward in its direction and staging than other early talkies. Lubitsch shot scenes in a dynamic way unusual for the mostly static films of the late 1920s. The Love Parade is far more watchable than many of the other technically troubled movies of the time, and the usual frustration for 1929 films is absent. Lubitsch incorporates the songs into the story proper, supposedly the first time this was done with a Hollywood musical. The numbers are fun, but mostly nothing great. I forgot most of them after a day, if not sooner, but a handful stand out, like Alfred saying goodbye to Paris with a song that highlights Chevalier's signature charm and energy.
With you each night meant a thrill of excitement, Montmartre and ladies that love to rest at ease. If I've been happy, then you're to blame. Oh, Paris, please, stay the same. I've seen your blonde girls with beautiful blonde curls, sweet Paris daughters, in all of your quarters. They taught me all that a kiss could be. Paris, your ladies were good enough for me.
And then there's Anything to Please the Queen, a song that's just sweet and fun.
You mean you'd really do anything to please the Queen?
Everything to please the Queen. Morning, noon and night. I'm yours to command me. You want me good? Then I'll be good. You want me bad? Then I'll be bad. I mean, I could be both if you demand me.
Understand me. What if I demand your head?
Perhaps you'd like my arms instead. I've lost my head the moment I saw you smile.
But my favorite number has to be Let's Be Common, which features the entertaining Lupino Lane as Alfred's servant Jacques and Lillian Roth as Lulu, one of the Queen's servants. The song is catchy and fills my heart with innocent old Hollywood joy.
Snuggle near, baby dear, why so haughty and severe? Let's get together and cuddle up right here.
Bear in mind, I'm refined, and I'm not that way inclined. Where's your proper pride?
Why be so dignified? Squeeze me once, squeeze me twice. Most improper, but oh, it's nice. Let's be common and do it again.
A real treat is the dancing from Lane and Roth, especially in this number where Lane appears to defy gravity in a way only a skilled dancer can. The Love Parade is funny. Not all of its jokes land, but the ones that do are hilarious. Such as this moment when the ambassador finds Alfred romancing his wife, and she supposedly shoots herself. or the aforementioned Goodbye to Paris song.
I've met brunettes here and little grisettes here.
I'm like my master now, I'm leaving you. He said, so am I very. I try to follow in his footsteps too. A few may remember me.
Or these couple of scenes where a frustrated Alfred speaks French. The first comes after a servant refuses to break protocol and serve Alfred food before the Queen arrives for breakfast.
Do you speak French?
No, Your Highness.
Eh ben, je ne sais pas si vous vous rendez compte que vous, votre château et votre déjeuner, vous commencez à m'embêter terriblement. Et votre reine par-dessus le marché. Ah!
The second is self-explanatory.
I am not permitted to receive suggestions in the affairs of state from the Prince Consort.
Not even when they are good?
Not even then.
Do you speak French?
Yes, Your Highness.
Too bad.
Maurice Chevalier's charm carries the film a long way, and it's the main reason this movie succeeds as much as it does. Chevalier's charisma, the good songs, and great dancing by Lane and Roth can't lift the movie to greatness. The Love Parade is good, but I can't say I love it. The film's 109-minute runtime drags out the already thin story, and there's also the issue of the romantic relationship. Chevalier and MacDonald have fun with turning 1920s gender roles on their heads, with Louise taking charge over Alfred.
So, you're bored. All I'm waiting for now is to have you tell me I'm neglecting you. Do you realize that not once since we've been married have I left you alone at night? And I never will.
Thank you. It's very kind of you.
And after this foreign loan is arranged, I'm going to take you to Vienna and buy you a lot of nice new uniforms.
That's it. You think all you have to do is to buy me a few new uniforms, and I'll be satisfied. That's the opinion you have of me, is it?
Oh, don't be silly, Alfred.
Oh, I'm sick of being treated as if I were a sort of plaything.
But Alfred ends up manipulative because he can't stand not dominating his wife, and the movie's climax is mean-spirited and sexist, leaving you on a downer. Despite rough patches, the third Academy Award was better than the dreadful second year. My favorite nominee was the Divorcee for sophistication and maturity with dealing with a complicated subject like divorce and the emotional devastation that can come afterward. The third winner of Best Picture is probably the most memorable of the Oscars' uneven early years. Check out my review of All Quiet on the Western Front as we take another look at World War I. This time, an all too serious one. Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed all that. Please let me know what you thought about the review and the movie in the comments below. If you liked the episode, please hit the like button, and if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. A link to my film blog can be found in the description below, and you can also find me on Twitter at CinemaPackRat.